the hilltop gate. So this was the distance for the line transect. And for tree, it's for 2 quadrants of 10 by 10 meter each. Yes, of course, we did have constraints. One is the lockdown. Everybody will remember the year 2020 for this particular. But nevertheless, the field, the team, the residential team really worked very nicely, and they could document actually all these three, three major components of the biodiversity. So, but we could not, as a team, like Kaustubh, I and Shreya, could not go there. That was the major thing. Then, of course, dry season, where we actually do not come to know the what exactly exists during the wet season, because that is the really time when many of the life forms flourish on in our part, from amphibians to monsoon flora, insects, they are all majorly unka time to monsoon. But anyway, we could be three. And of course, there was a loss of one quadrant. In 2008-9 study, we did 3 quadrants at the same places, at the same place. The one quadrant was lost. It was either due to some construction that has happened over there. So we could not study that area because there was no biodiversity left on that particular patch. So this is just a quick introduction about what we did. Yeah, so this was the line transect that I was talking about. This yellow line is a line transect.
Gauri, sorry to interrupt. Your voice is breaking up.
Wait a second. Is it okay now?
Yeah, we'll know once you speak a little more. Yeah. Okay, let's continue.
Right, right. This is the line transect. The yellow line represents our line transect. Okay, so we started from here. Um, that's the staff quarters gate, and then you walk along this entire yellow line, and then just document whatever you can see on your left and right, and also on top, because the birds will fly there in the air. So this we followed only for butterflies and the birds, whereas here you can see the quadrants. Okay, here we documented the trees. So this was exact the location. Over to you, Shreya, from here.
Yes, Gauri. So as Gauri said, the hillside, the IIT Bombay hillside was studied with two different methods. One was quadrant and one was the transect. So we observations for the quadrants were next please. First, during the quadrant study, we focus on trees only, as since it is a dry season, a lot of trees only we could calculate. So during the trees, we could able to get almost 80 individuals of trees from the 16 different species, and from they were from 15 different genres, and they are from 13 different families. So this was the variety between the 10 by 10 meter quadrant. Such four quadrants were developed. And the dominant species which we found in this quadrant was the teak tree, that is the sag. The botanical name is Textonus grandis, and out of 80, 31 individuals were present in both of the quadrants. Another tree which we found in 15 individual, as 15 individual was the Amla, that is the Aula tree, Phyllanthus symbolica, and third was the Mui, which is a forest species, and that was with 6 number. Teak and Amla, the number is much higher. It might be because of the plantations. There are some plantations along the hillside area, so it might be because of the plantation. The butterfly studies were next, please. The butterflies were observed during the line transact method, and a good number of 105 individuals were observed out of the 27 species. 27 different species were recorded from 4 families, and even there was a super family, Papilionidae was a super family, which was their number. And dominant species from these butterflies was a common gull butterfly, uh, and with 17 individuals. Plain Cupid was another 15 number of individuals were present in those line transact method. The majority time the study was done in early in the morning, so a lot of butterflies is related to observe. Site with the common butterfly for that area was 12 in individual. Next, even the birds were studied with the line transact method, and 719 number of birds were observed during the study. Out from the 71 birds were from 38 different species, and they are from 33 genera, 33 genus were there, and they are from say 26 families. That means a lot of variation was there, and from the 8 orders. So a lot of variation from a flock of black kite to a single bird. The dominant species was black kite with almost 235 individuals in there. That was in a fringe line where the barricades and all everything is there. Then the thick-billed crow, the jungle crow sometimes. Thick-billed crow with the 97 individuals, and then the common bird, another common bird which is known as common maina, the sarungi. The common maina was with 54 individuals. So this was the study which is done between the 2 months for the dry season. Next, please. Also, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Gauri and Shreya. Just a quick, what you call, correction in my introduction. I work with Tolani College of Commerce, not with Hinduja College. I used to work with Hinduja College some few years back, but now I'm working with Tolani College, right? So that's the only small, what you call, correction that I would like to bring to the notice. Now, bringing to the point, let's start with the part where when we were comparing the two parts, like, see, we had conducted the studies, but we need to compare. We need to understand what is the difference or what were the similarities. Are there any are there any trends declining or increasing, or is it stable? That is what we wanted to look at. So can we have the next, Gauri? Yeah. So biodiversity indices. Now let's understand, even if there are two places, two different biodiversity places where we are comparing biodiversity, or same place when we are comparing at two different times, the most important part is we need to have uniformity to compare. That's the only reason why we use biodiversity indices. That's one of the, it's a statistic, it's basically a statistical method. It's used for comparing. And if we have to compare, you need to bring them at a uniform this thing. But otherwise, it is very difficult to compare. Consider something like an Amazon forest and probably a deciduous forest. They are two different entities altogether. But if we have to compare them, we have to bring them to a uniformity. So biodiversity indices offer these kind of uniformity. Now there are several biodiversity indices that are used, right, for various parts. Can I have the next one? Yeah. So one of the part that they use is species richness. This is one part that of what you call rather a quality of the community. ecological community, that is species richness. What are the number of species in the community? It is not regarding how abundant they are. It just counts the number of species in the community. So we had used the Gauri, can we have the next Mannix richness index? This index was used. Basically, it just counts what you call this particular index just uses the number of species. Of course, it compares it with the total number of individuals found, but higher the value, better it is. It is said. Okay, can we have the next? Gauri? So then comes a part of species diversity. Here it considers both the richness, that is how what is a number. At the same time, it talks about the relative abundance, or how evenly or equitably the entire distribution is. For this, we have used next the Scheiner-Weiner in the diversity index. It's another diversity index that is used. So basically, again, here what they do is it's just a what do you call? Here again, lower the value. Now, please understand, Scheiner-Weiner index uses a logarithmic scale. So even if there's a small difference, it's still a logarithmic difference. So it could mount to something else, right? So it takes into consideration both the number of species as well as relative index. Lower the value, better it is what said. Okay, when we talk about species abundance, can I have the next one? We have used for abundance and other part, we have used indexes like Simpson index. There are 3 or 4 variations of Simpson index. One is called the Simpson's index, where it talks about species abundance. It is based on a simple probability that 2 individuals from a sample would be same species. How much probable this can be? That is what it looks into. So this value, it has to be always less than or equal to 1. Here it is given by a value D. D stands for nothing but dominance. It talks about dominance. Closer the value is to 1, it talks about dominant it is, more the dominance of a single species. Can I have the next? Or you have got the exact opposite of that would be the diversity index. So it is nothing but 1 minus D. It's as simple. Again, the same thing. The probability is the 2 species that you have found are different. Out of 2 individuals you have found are of different species. That is what the 90% probability range is what they use in this. So closer to 1, more is the diversity. So these are exactly opposite to each other. Can we have the next one, please? The next is about Simpson's reciprocal. Is good, but we need to also consider that it could be because the 1 quadrant was lost. We are comparing 2 quadrants and data from 2 quadrants with 3 quadrants. So this kind of things can happen, and that is why the Scheiner-Weiner and other indices matter. We'll come to that. Same with the butterflies. There's a clean decrease in the value. Birds, there is a slight decrease in the value. Though if you look at it, the species-wise, there is a quite difference. But index-wise, it's still, the difference is not that huge. Can we come to the next one, Gauri? Scheiner-Weiner. Yeah. So again, Scheiner-Weiner, if you look at it, if you look at it, it's still not much difference, 0.3, but it's a logarithmic scale. But here there's a decline, right? Again, the same part. We would think, oh, the declining of Weiner index shows that there is an increase in diversity. Let's come to the Simpsons when we will talk about it. We will discuss about it. Just wait, good. Again, with the butterflies, there's an increase. So this again shows that there's a decline in the species diversity because there's an increase in the index, right? For the butterflies, birds, again, there's a decline in the value. So it talks about, there is a declining trend in the diversity, right? Can we go to the Simpsons index, Gauri? No, Simpsons index paints a different picture altogether. The Simpsons index, as I spoke about, talks about the abundance, or rather it talks about the dominance. So if you look at the value in 2020 is more close to 1. So there is dominance of 1 species. If you look at it, teak has dominated this particular part. Whereas in 2019, the diversity was abundance, or rather dominance was less, 0.18. Again, with the butterflies, there is a on a similar trend. There's still a diversity seen. right? There's a, what do you call it? The value is much farther away from 1. Same is true for birds, but then it shows a declining trend, or rather an increasing trend. So the dominance is increasing again. What it points towards is dominant of a single species is increasing. With birds, it is very evident. Black kites were very much high in number. Can we have the next? Yeah, Gauri. Yeah. So when you talk about the diversity index, as I said, it is exactly the opposite of Simpson's index. So again, with birds, with trees, it tells you that the diversity is decreasing because the value is getting more lesser away from the 1 as compared to 2009 and 20. Butterflies, there is not much of a change. Though if you look at it, there has been an increase in the number of species. The diversity-wise, the change is not much. Birds, again, the change is not much evident. Yeah. Can we have the next slide, Gauri? Again, when Simpson's reciprocal index, which talks about the niches, it talks about the ecological niches. This is where it talks about, higher the value, better it is. So if you compare with 2009, we would come to know that the niches have decreased as in the 2020 study, from 5.4 to almost 1.24. So there's quite a difference. This ecological niches are declining. So though from the trees point of view, we saw that the diversity is increasing, or the species richness has increased, the diversity is better, but still the niches, the ecological niches, it points towards a declining trend in most of the cases. Can I have the next? Evenness. If you just look at the evenness index, again, there has been a declining trend. So that means the population is not distributed evenly. It is more or less lopsided. It is concentrated at one place. That is what evenness index tells us about. Right? So if we just look at this particular trend, the birds, it is declining. So all in all, if you compare this entire thing, it points towards a declining trend in the biodiversity, right? So, Gauri, can we have the next? Yeah. So now what I would do is I will request Gauri Shreya to start with the part again.
Yes.
Right. So I would stop boring you with my numbers. I would come back again to bug you again with some serious facts again. Gauri, over to you, Shreya.
So that was actually the most complicated part, the numbers, which already, that was in comparison between the 2009 studies and 2020 study. So numbers always confuse people. So let's have something simple. We will have glimpses of biodiversity of the hillside area with the photo slides. Next, please, David. So the trees, which were the most common trees in this area, in the hillside area, were the red silk cotton tree or the shalmali. So as the study was conducted during the dry season, that was a flowering time for this particular tree, and we can use the flowers next. Another common tree was another tree, which is the first species actually, is the moi or the shemat, and it also flowers during the month of February and March. Next. So the mahua tree, which was also observed in this area. Then there was next, you can see the habitat photograph and the flowering photograph of the same tree. So the upper one is the habitat photo, that is the photo of the whole tree, and the other photo is of the flowers of those particular trees. And I think you can able to identify the palash or the Deutia monospermum because these flowers are much common nowadays. It is a forest species, no doubt, but nowadays it is widely used for the plantations also. Next. And the teak tree or the sag in Marathi or Tectona grandis, which is which was found in major number in both of the quadrats, and you can see flowers of this particular tree. Though it is a monsoon flowering plant, this photograph is not from IIT campus. This is from the other area, but just to show the flowers, we have put this particular photograph over here. So these were the some of the common trees. Next, please. Some common butterflies which were studied during the transact method were the uh, cupid, which was one of the dominant species in that area, and very good amount of butterflies were seen, since the flora which exists there is still it is declined, no doubt, but still it is still in a good patch or a good number of plants over there. So that's why a lot of butterflies we can see over there. So apart from some of the common butterflies like pike or the red parrot, some seasonal butterflies like yellow orange tip. The last photo slide, the yellow orange tip was also recorded in the hillside patch. So next, please. The hillside area also supports a lot of bird diversity and various types of birds. Like they have different feeding habitats, and still these birds exist there. So some of the birds, like sunbirds, you can see over here, purple rum sunbird and purple sunbird, which are nectar feeding birds. Birds like white-throated kingfisher, which is omnivorous. That means it has mixed diet. Even the small green bee eater, which is an insectivorous bird, it is there. Birds like shikra, which is a completely hunting type of a bird, that was also seen over there. And birds like scaly-breasted munia, red-vented bulbul. So these are the granivorous birds. So these also found. So birds with all type of diets were seen in the hillside, along the hillside area. Next. Next slide, please. So these are the photographs which are documented by some of the nature enthusiasts. Which they they used to visit the hillside area even after our rapid survey was over. So they have clicked some of the photographs of birds and other flora which exist over there. And these are the photographs taken by Mr. Rakesh Das and Aniket Kabir. So this photographs are not included during our study, comparison study. These photographs are not included since they were from the another season. But we have shown them here just to have an idea that throughout the year you have a lot of diversity. Fungoid frog you can see over there, which is a you can observe it during the monsoon. And even there is a monsoon plant known as celosia. The last photograph you can see, this is a monsoon plant. So such type of monsoon flora is also there, which of course it will not be there if you visit during the dry season. So these are some of the photographs. You can just have a look, and we will continue for further. Next, please. So see, last time in the year 2009, a 6-month study was conducted, and 11 years after, in the 2020, a rapid survey was conducted. So we are now showing some of the next slide, please. We are now have some photo slides of the study which was conducted during the 2009 period. So during that period, all the 3 seasons were taken into consideration, and these are the photographs of some bryophytes and pteridophytes which are present into IIT campus, not only the hillside but the whole IIT campus. So you can see some of the mosses over there, some of the ferns which grows particularly in monsoon season over there. Next, different type of fungus which are saprophytic in nature, that is they are growing on the dead and decaying organisms, and perform a very good role of mineral recycling for the ecosystem. They were also present. So these are some of the fungus, please, some of the fungus species, different type of species of fungus which were present in whole IIT campus. Next. So these are some more fungus photographs which were taken during the last 2009 studies. Next, please. So this is a collage of the flowers which were all taken during the last time study. So you can just think about the different varieties of flora which was present during the 2009 study. So I think one of you or the whole group from you can really do an exercise that you can really go and find whether these plants are still exist or not, or not only the plants, not only the flora but fauna also. So whether this really today also whether they exist or what happened to them, you can really go and search for them. Next, please. Over to you, Gauri. Gauri. Hello, Gauri. Next, please. Hello.
Am I audible now?
Yes,
Yes.
Gauri.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay. Okay. So thank you, Shreya, for the introduction to the biodiversity. Um I'll just continue with the faunal part. We will begin with the insects. Now, again, a question answer session. Not exactly a session, but one question. What makes an insect an insect? This is a question, so you can answer. Any guesses? Or somebody might be knowing the correct answer as well.
Please feel free to unmute yourself and answer, or you could send your answers in the chat. Could you repeat the question, Gauri?
Okay. What makes an insect an insect? What is the main characteristic of an insect? Any guesses? I'm sure we must have come across a lot of insects in our life. Like there is a cockroach, there is mosquito at least. Everybody has seen these two insects.
Okay, so we have
Okay.
a few
Yeah.
answers on the. You can see the answers on the chat, Gauri.
I cannot.
Okay.
Because
So one is number of legs. Shushira says number of legs.
right.
Vishnu says structure of legs.
Okay.
And Riyanka is saying 3 pairs of jointed legs and 2 pairs of thoracic wings.
Great.
Mosh,
Great.
yeah. So then we have a few answers. That 6 legs is a few of our guests have answered that, and Anjali says exoskeleton.
Okay. Great. So you know everything. Good. Yes, you all are correct. It's basically the number of legs that makes the exact number of legs, like the 6 legs. That is 3 pairs of legs. This is the main characteristic of any insect. So right in front of you, you have some damselflies and dragonflies. Although it is written as dragon, but these are like this is a damselfly and it's a dragonfly. So the one with the heavy and comparatively shorter tail here, they are all dragonflies. I think those who lived in the native side must have played with them as well when we were children. So, which is not really a good thing to do, but still, this is how you remember the dragonflies. And these are the damselflies with a very slim body and long abdomen here, very thin. They are like a needle. In Marathi, they call it as a tanchini. They are very like narrow-bodied creature. Another thing, another difference between them is look at the wing pattern. When the dragonfly sits, is generally, and whenever the damselfly sits, it's with the wings closed. It has four wings. Even this has four wings, but they are generally remain closed while sitting. In dragonflies, they are generally open. So this is like a basic difference how you can how you can make out. Yes, of course, here you can check every insect. They all have 6 legs. Yeah. और जस्ट इन केस अगर किसी का एक पैर नहीं है तो वो शायद किसी फाइट में चला गया होगा, बट इफ इट इज एन इंसेक्ट इट हैज टू हैव 6 legs. Okay. From see, we are still on the insects group. There is something that has come up. Should I allow here?
Sorry, what happened?
There is there's a message on my screen. Can you all read this?
No, we can't see the message. What is it?
Maitreyi is asking to requesting a control. So should I allow?
Yes, please.
Yeah, it is.
Gauri, don't.
It is gone. It is gone. It is
Yeah.
gone. Okay. So sorry. Let's continue with the insects. So from dragonflies, damselflies, let's go to the grasshoppers, mantids. Like mantises, we all know mantises. At least we have seen a picture. Then we have hoppers and we have flies. Of course, grasshoppers and mantises, that is the praying mantis, they might look similar. There is a lot of difference, but still they might look similar. But the main thing is grasshoppers. They are, simple language you can call them as vegetarians. They are all vegetarians. They feed on the stem. They feed on the leaf. Whereas mantises, they are strictly like they have to hunt. They are hunters. Okay, and that is how their body is also designed. Look at these front legs. Uh, there will be like very few who can escape through those huge legs. I think they are strong ones as well, and with the bristles. So it's whenever it catches any insect or any prey, it is really difficult for the prey to escape. They are really meant for the no like a kill. They are meant for a kill. Also, mantises, they can move their head, neck. They can move their head. Have you seen any cockroaches doing that, looking here or there? No, only mantises can do that. And this beautiful one here is the painted grasshopper. It really appears like somebody has actually sat down and done some nice painting on them. Okay, then you have hoppers. Now here you can see them as huge, big insects. But actually in the field, it is really difficult to locate them as well. They are really up to they're like any small bush or any small herb. They're really tiny. Some of them are like tinier than say 5 millimeters. So it's really difficult to spot them in the field. But luckily we had a really good team on with that worked on the field in 2008 and 9, and we could get a lot of variety uh, in hoppers as well. Now we also have flies. I'll talk about this particular one. This is the robber fly. Look at the structure of this legs. Again, it is as the name suggests robber fly. तो ये really किसी को हवा में पकड़ लेता है तो छोड़ता नहीं है. It's like a basket, तो वो 6 के 6 लेग्स ऐसे पकड़ लेगा like a basket, और वो basket के अंदर उसका prey रहेगा. So they rob the flying insect also in the air. So really the smart killers. From here we will go to the next. That is the beetles, bugs, bees, and wasps. We are still on the insects. Let me tell you. Let me just remind you again. You have beetles, bugs. Now, the difference between them is first is the body. Okay, the outer body is very hard in beetles, whereas in bugs they are really soft-bodied creatures. Another thing, main important difference is in their mouth parts. Beetle can actually bite and chew, whereas bugs can only, they can pierce and suck the liquid. They cannot bite, like how we can bite. We have biting type of mouth parts, so we can bite, but bugs cannot. Yeah, so that's the main difference. I hope you can still see 6 legs on every insect. Um, this particular one is a jewel bug, and similarly there is also a jewel beetle. Look at the shining color of these insects, and actually in earlier times during the time of queens and all, they used to use those insects as a brooches, to decorate their clothes. Uh, a really bad practice, but still they are really beautiful, and they look more beautiful on the plant or in flying in the air. And this one is the tortoise beetle over here, and you can see why it is called as tortoise. Then you also have bees and wasps in your campus. Now everybody knows them. These are honeybees, and everybody but experience then at least have heard about how they sting. They sting really badly. Like, so जब भी हम बोलते हैं कि मनुपक्षी ने काटा, डंक, so they have uh, this structure at the end of their abdomen, so where the sting is present at the end of their abdomen, so that is inserted whenever they are agitated. And whereas this particular group, they're called that stingless bee, not sting you. So some of you might have started thinking कि अरे कितना अच्छे हैं ये सारे bees, they don't sting you. Be aware of them as well, because they cannot sting, but still they can bite you, and it's a very nasty bite that you of course don't mess with anyone here. Okay, here is a wasp. These are different types of wasp. You can see here, you can see the cuckoo wasp right here. This is I think this is a potter wasp, if I'm not mistaken. So this is the variety in beetles, bugs, wasps, and bees. This is like some of the species of these groups. Okay, you have lot and lot of them in your campus. Let's talk about ants. Ants are really very poorly documented, or rather ignored, insects. If you look at the worldwide, there are about 96,500 species found all over the world of ants. And in India, we are like I think we have nearly 600 to 800 species. Whereas in Mumbai, we actually don't have much data on ants. I think the first ever efforts were done by Kaustubh only when we were doing this study. I think there we have come across 17 different species of ants in your campus. And there was one team member, Kashmira. She's also pursuing her PhD on ants. She was inspired from this particular project, and she has continued with her work on ants. So that's a really beneficial study to in all sense. Yeah, this particular one here is like it's a bicolor ant. It's like easy to identify. You can see a black and a brown color. You can see two colors, make them bicolor ant. अगर कभी ज़मीन पे if you see a fortress kind of a thing, अगर ज़मीन पे किसी ने किला बांधा है छोटा सा, तो वो it's probably it's not probably, it is of ants. They are called as harvester ants. These ones over here, like they look like muddy roses, roses made up of mud. Very clever ants. I will not go into deeper, but the structure and everything is really beautiful, and it's very intelligently built nest on the ground. they harvest, like they are called as harvester, and because they harvest something, uh, what they do is they take the grains inside their chambers, and then it is like piled up over there, and they a certain type of fungus grows upon that particular grain, and then that fungus is eaten up by the younger ones. So they really harvest their food, and that's why they're called as harvester ants. This one, of course, is a pagoda ant's nest. They are called as Crematigostis. और इसने इससे बहुत दूर रहिए आप, बिकॉज दे रियली स्टिंग रियली बैडली. बहुत ही ऑल्दो देयर साइज इज लाइक वेरी स्मॉल, बट बहुत ज़्यादा ज़ोर से काटेंगे आपको. एंड प्लीज स्टे बी केयरफुल वेन एवर यू हैव एनी नेस्ट. And when I say careful, that means you just don't have to go nearby. You really don't have to remove the nest. You just have to stay away. That's it. अगर आप कुछ नहीं करेंगे तो वो आपको कुछ भी नहीं करेंगे. That's the simple law. Okay, then some more insects. Let me tell you, we are still on insects. You know, insect is like one of the largest group of animal kingdom. You have variety into that. So these are some butterflies. And here are some moths. Now, since you know what are the leg, what is the characteristic of the insect? Can you tell me what this is?
Nice.
Sorry.
Okay, some of the answers coming in are camouflage, leaf insect.
Okay, and
waiting
it's
for
an interesting
more.
name. Interesting name, leaf insect.
Any other answers? Please type in chat, or just you can unmute yourself. And leaf bug.
Leaf bug. Wow.
Anti-carrying leaf. Oh, sorry, it must be ant carrying leaf.
Okay, ant carrying. No, they are butterflies. Okay, so should I continue?
Yeah, I think you can give away the answer.
Or there are more answers coming in? Okay. Okay, this is a under part or a portion of the one. You can and eye. You can see the leg.
Gauri, your voice is breaking up.
Actually, now I don't know.
Could you just repeat what you said?
Okay. Here you can see the antenna of the butterfly. Here you can see the eye. And there are the legs. Okay. This butterfly has closed its wings, and when it opens, it has nice side blue. It's a combination of blue, black, and brown. Very, very, very nice butterfly. It is called as blue oak leaf butterfly. And it's a master of camouflage. You know, अगर ये कहीं पत्ते में नीचे बैठा है तो नहीं पता चलेगा आपको ये कहाँ बैठा है. Or if even there is a butterfly sitting in front of you, unless it flies. So this is like a kind of protection it has got. Then of course you also have the largest butterfly of Maharashtra, the blue mormon, in your campus. Then Shreya, while explaining about the findings of our study, she mentioned that we found butterflies belonging to one superfamily, the Papilionida, belonging to one superfamily. That's the Papilionida, and this is like a Hesperidae. These are called as skippers. They are butterflies, but they belong to a different group. Okay. So this family was, or the super family of skippers, was not seen during this particular study because it's a dry season and they are more related to the monsoon season. Okay, even in 2009, 8 and 9 study, we did not find them during these months. So whatever documentation was done for the family Hesperidae was for from the monsoon season or the wet season. Then of course you have butterflies, you have moths as well in your campus. Uh, Basic differences, butterfly antennas, they are like they are clubbed at the end, at the tip, or sometimes they are like you know जैसे earbud कैसे रहेगा, at the end they have like a thick bulb kind of a thing, okay, on their antennas. So either they are like straight and at the end they are curved, okay, like something like a hockey stick, or they have this tip which is like I said, जैसे हम थोड़ा सा thick रहेगा यहाँ पे. And then here in moths you have antennas that are straight and they have small bristles. Okay, so this is the basic difference or the main difference in butterflies and moths. Otherwise, there are many like this. Butterflies generally sits with their wings closed. Moths, they sit with their wings open. Butterflies generally fly in day, but moths generally fly in night. But here you have the day flying moth, which is a handmaiden moth. Here, this particular one is a no, it might be it might resemble some bird, which is like it resembles the owl. So it is called as owl moth. ये दो उल्लू की आंखें हैं, and this is how the owl's face might look, and it is mimicking the owl. So here you have the owl moth, and whereas the small one, comparatively small one is called as owlet moth. So you have owl as well as owlet moth in your campus. So now we have finished with the insects. Let's come to the next group of arachnids. Arachnids, they generally.
Gauri, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm interrupting. We need to
Yes, yes,
push it
yes,
a bit
yes,
further because
yes,
we are almost closing towards the time. That's the only
yes,
warning that we have
yes.
received. Yeah.
This was the major group, so that took the time. Later are not that much. So you have arachnids there, which are like with the 8 legs, okay? And arachnids are generally spiders. So you have this signature spider in your campus. So here is a debris spider. This one is the tunnel spider. अगर आप कहीं भी घूमने जाए तो on the ground you might come across some webs that are built up on the ground. It's like a white sheet on the ground, so they are called as tunnel web spiders. Not all the spiders they build webs, so you have like ambush hunters like this jumping spiders, the uh, so yeah. Anyway, this is the sun spider, and just at the background you can see the some hostel building. But this, what it indicates is it's not only you have to go into deep vegetated patches to see the biodiversity. It also exists, in your vicinity as well. You just have to keep an eye on that. Then you have some other fauna that will include annelids, gastropods, crustaceans. This is the millipede, centipede. All of them you have in your campus. But of course, this is more related to the monsoon. So this is land crab, which comes out in monsoon only. So keep an eye for them, and you'll enjoy watching them. Then of course you have amphibians, butterflies, amphibians and reptiles. Major being the Indian bullfrog and the toad. Then from in reptiles you have like the small one is the gecko over here, जिसको हम छिपकली बोलते हैं in general. And from this size you have the massive size, that is the crocodile, which is right there in the Powai Lake, which is right in there in your they are your neighbors. Of course, you have calotes, skinks in your campus. From there, we will come to the some nice. I think this is the area where you are more attracted to, or you know much more about birds. So I won't take much time on that. So in birds section, you have birds from water to insectivorous to frugivorous, all type of variety in birds you have. So it's a very lovely diversity that your campus holds. You also have monsoon visitors like white-breasted cuckoo, then you have Indian pitta, which is really beautiful. And here you have this particular one is a Rufous woodpecker. I think yours was the first place where we actually saw a Rufous woodpecker eating ants of the in the pagoda ant's nest. So that was really the first time sighting of that particular activity of the Rufous woodpecker. Then we come to the last group of the fauna, that is the mammal. You have these many different mammals that were documented during the 2008-9 study. You have bats, you have rats, you have shrews, langurs. This is the Indian grey langur. You also have ruddy mongoose in your campus. I'm sorry, I must have said the Indian grey langur. It is Indian grey mongoose. And you also have a ruddy mongoose. You have rhesus macaques as well as bonnet macaques in your campus. Of course, squirrels are there everywhere. So this was about the diversity of your campus that was documented during 2008-9 study. Yeah, over to you, Kaustu.
Yeah, hi, thank you. I'll probably move a little quicker through this particular part. One part that we have is we have the three suggestions towards this particular study, post this study. One of the major thing would be we would probably need a comprehensive 3-season study because there are certain parts, certain plants which can be documented only during monsoons, like this particular Jan to February. That's a dry season. So especially flora or plants are difficult to document, and that's one part that is a very uh, basic part in any biodiversity study. That is what we feel. Apart from that, the the hillside has one area which appears to be very rocky and barren, but that I would assure you during monsoon is teeming with biodiversity. I can assure you that in 2008-9, that particular part, we could not study that particular patch due to some constraints that were there, logistic constraints. But I would assure you that if we go there, we would find a lot of species which are quite rare, or we could find some interesting species over there. That is what generally what I could make out from observing that this area. So that's why 3-season study is very essential. Also, if possible, if it is done for the entire campus, nothing like it. And not just one time study, you need to have a continuous monitoring plan, because without that, it is biodiversity is something that we need to monitor every now and then, because only then we can come up with some what you call trends, or we can say some concrete things about it. Otherwise, without that, it is very difficult. Can we have the next part slide? Also, we need to understand that hillside, especially I would talk from the hillside point of view, because that's the part which we have studied in last 2 months, in those 2 months. So that is the part that is a very biodiversity rich patch, and given its proximity to the Sanjay Gandhi National Park, it should be left undisturbed. Better it is left undisturbed. When I say undisturbed, it does not mean stop access for the people. Allow people to walk in, because that is one part way to often restricting the movement of the people can be detrimental in some other ways. So it's always good to have people moving around. That's good. But can we have the next? So that's the one part that we need. Also, the most important point, any developmental activities, even those which are advocating green technologies, should be restricted to existing built up areas. Because hillside is one of the green patches that you have. There are many vegetative patches across IIT Bombay campus. So you can have right from Soneri Bagh, or you have the Kol Dongri area, or you have got several patches which are there. So those patches should also be looked into, is what I will. Any development activities, if we can restrict them to the built up areas, it would be great. We understand that as the campus is expanding, as the institute is expanding, we would need more spaces, but can it be done by accommodating the biodiversity? That is what we have to look at. Because end of the day, this is all about, we have been talking about the whole biodiversity day. Like yesterday was a World Biodiversity Day. So that is why we chose 23rd May. because 22nd May, being the World Biodiversity Day, we thought we can put up our findings about biodiversity on that occasion. That would be great. And most important part, this year the theme is we are a part of solution. We are here to find solutions. We cannot just say that, no, we cannot be what you call, we just think about biodiversity or we just think about development. No, that is not the case. We have to think about how these things can go hand in hand. Can we have the next slide, Gauri? So, if you look at Sanjay Gandhi National Park, which is a neighbor for you, it has got 1,500 plus species of plants, around 285 species of birds, 43 odd species of mammal, 45 species of reptiles, 12 species of amphibians, 150 species of butterflies. So, at least, even if you say 10% of this biodiversity is in your campus, if you say that, still that's quite a huge number. We need to think from that point of view. Also, what happens is in many of the places, people are clearly aware about the biodiversity in Africa, or let's say Amazon, or let's say Russia, Europe, but we don't know what's in our own backyard. So you may have heard about this phenomenon called NIMBY, that is not in my backyard, which talks about anything that happens, it should not happen in my backyard. I think we should also know something that's called WIMBY, which I dub it as WIMBY, that is what's in my backyard, because we don't know what's there around us. And this particular project, I appreciate the citizens, the residents who had been a part of this project, because without them, if I have to name you guys, it would be like, I have the name list. I have to acknowledge you guys. Anjali James, Aragya Sinha, Dr. Gayatri Nathu, Hari Mahajan, Malika Ravikumar, Megha Gupta, MR, Neha Chaudhary, Professor Nutan Limaye, Pawan Vittal Rao Mitte Pawar, Pratap Mazhar Shetty, Rakendu S, then you have Ravi Rajan, S. Yugabala, Sheetal Shah, Sumana Srinivasan, and Zakia Khan. All these people have volunteered. The idea is, these kind of session this is not a standalone session. We can have more such sessions where we'll be introducing you to different aspects, how we can look into the different aspects of biodiversity. How do you document biodiversity? There's something that's called citizen science, where citizens can collect this data. Citizens can be a scientist. Who says science has to be done by the scientist? Common people. And we are talking about a technical institutes where we have got quite a few scientists. It's high time we think about scientists who just doesn't people who are just people who work in the lab, but there are field scientists as well, people who work in the field on the fields. So these kind of citizen science is important, because this documentation of biodiversity, had that 2008-9 session not been done, study not been done, it would have been difficult for us to show that there's a declining trend, or there is whatever it may. Comparison would have been difficult. So you need to have a baseline data as well. Now, to give you an example, how baseline important documenting biodiversity is, a few years back, there was a UN cry that sparrows are declining. People could see that the sparrows are declining, but it was difficult to prove on paper because we never had a baseline data. Nobody counted the population of sparrows. That they were so common that nobody tried to put up a document those things. That is what we have to look at.
Thanks, Kaustubh. Actually, that brings me to a good point that the next session in this series, which is going to be on citizen science, what Kaustubh just mentioned, it's going to be on June 27th. So just mentioning it right now so that all of you hope to see all of you who attended today there as well, in addition to new joinees. Kaustubh, can we start with the Q&A session now?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So we do have a few interesting questions from the audience. So yeah, a few of our audience asked, was there any reason why you didn't cover monkeys, other primates, leopards, reptiles, in the study?
Okay.
Kaustubh, can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry. I muted myself. I'm really sorry. One of the biggest things that we have to look at is the time availability. We had a very small time frame of 2 months where we had to finish this particular part. So that was one reason. That's why we just chose those important ones to highlight. And also what happens is these smaller biodiversity gives you a better indicator. Because see, let's understand, documenting a leopard, it is not easy. We have not, even in last study, the leopard was not documented. Even in the present study, the leopard was not documented. But that does not mean the leopard does not exist. You have to look for those tracks and everything. So these kind of parts which we had to look into. And also when we had, this was a citizen science initiative. So we thought we'll take something that is much more easier to deal with and works it. We can work it out. This was like a pilot project that we ran. So we thought of using these three major parts, namely the trees, which are easy to identify and much more there. The butterfly